There is a presentation which Prashant Agarwal will start with. Before introducing the speakers and panelists and all that, I'll just give a very brief background to some of you who are here. This is a new concept that we are trying. Of course, the Fab Show itself is a new initiative by CMAI. This is our first edition, and the attempt is really to bring the entire supply chain of the garment industry under one roof to the garment manufacturers. That's the long-term vision. I think the initial start has been very encouraging. We managed to sell about 100,000 square feet of space with a little over 200 participants. And you'll be surprised that our original expectation to fill up this 100,000 square feet was 300 participants, because we assumed that the fabric manufacturers will not want to take as much or as large a space as the typical garment manufacturer would take. In our garment fairs, we book between 7 to 8 lakh square feet at Nesco. So therefore, whilst we were able to completely sell out the space that was available at Jio, the size per stall, average size per stall, was much larger than what we had anticipated. So we had to stop our booking at a little over 200 stalls. But I'm told that's still an extremely good figure for a fabric-related show and accessories related show. So I'm glad that we were able to make a good beginning. There are lots of learnings, and I think the overall response in the industry and the market has been very good. We've got international buyers from 8 countries, which is, I think, a great performance for the first show. And not only that, we've got one international participant who's sitting here, right here, from Ecuador. Their speciality is buttons. She's, of course, representing the government of Ecuador, but they are standing in for a supplier from Ecuador. So it's a good beginning. The other initiative that took and an experiment that we did, we will come to know at the end of 3 days whether that's been successful or not, was to have these small, I would call them group discussions, seminars, whatever you want, where we felt that apart from just buying and selling, when a visitor comes to an exhibition, he would also like to take away something new, something different, something about the future. And that's where we coined this phrase, thinking out of the box. And that's where we've got a panel of experts on 4 different subjects, trying to tell us what the future is likely to be, what the new initiatives are likely to be. And so we've got something on sourcing, we've got something on technology, we've got something on various aspects, sustainability, and we are hoping that we are sure that the panelists will do their job. We are hoping that the audience will also appreciate and pick up something which they had not thought of earlier. This whole series of seminars has been conceived and constructed and structured by my good friends and advisors, Wazir advisors, and I'm delighted that both Prashant Agarwal and Harminder Sahni are here today. They'll be moderating the various seminars. Prashant is here from Wazir to moderate and present this particular seminar. So Prashant, over to you. And can I also request Sanjay, is he here?
Yes, sir.
Can I also request Sanjay to introduce the moderator and the speakers? Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon to all of you. We are meeting here today for the first part of the 4-part seminars that you arranged. Today's topic is basically consumer and technological trends in fashion fabrics. Now, we had earlier got around 4 panelists. Now, unfortunately, Mr. Ajay Sardana could not join us, but he's given us the presentation. He has a medical emergency because of which he cannot come today. So our friend Prashant would be taking over his role for that part. I also would like you to welcome the panelist, Mr. Mukesh Bansal. He is the head fabric marketing, and Mr. Yatiraj Mundra, who is from the Madhusudan group. Yeah, and Prashant is our joint managing chairman from a director from Wazir Advisors Private Limited, and he will be moderating the entire panel and the presentation itself. So I would like to welcome all of you, please, with a round of applause. Prashant.
So, good afternoon, all the honored guests present over here. And when we were I was discussing with Rahul Bhai that, the whole conceptualization of this conference and what should be the topic. And I think this first session, which is today afternoon, the session topic, consumer and technology trends in fashion fabrics, because it's a fabrics and accessories show. And as people who are involved in this industry, we should actually really understand that because fabric is the driving force for this industry. I was sharing with Mukesh, I think technology stops here at the fabric stage. Garment is all industrial engineering. When you convert fabrics into garments, cuts and silhouettes, you have time and motion study, you do a lot of industrial engineering. But fabric is where technology plays a very important part. From fiber, yarn, and fabrics. So worldwide, if you see, the colors are limited, but everybody plays on the fabric and cuts and silhouettes. That's a key. While India, we have a lot of handwork, embroidery, printing, a lot of things happen on the fabric where sometimes fabric is not visible. But today, more and more trends are where the kind of permutation and combinations which are happening in fabrics is really, really numerous. So that's what is driving. And I would say, where Sanjay ji was explaining that one of my panelists, Anindya Ray, is chief sourcing guy from Arvind Brands. He just missed because of medical emergency. So he had sent a presentation and we have given him some questions, and he has actually made this presentation on lines of that. So when I saw this presentation today, I thought, while he's not there, let me present it. While it's not my presentation, but I think he has captured what's happening in the fabric industry really well. So I thought, let me share it. And after that, with Mukesh being here and Yatiraj being here, Yatiraj from Madhusudan Group, really deep into synthetic MMF industry. Mukesh being from Vardhaman. Again, Vardhaman is the leader of cotton and blends textile in India. So with these two people there, I think, discuss at length on each and every topic in terms of what consumer is looking for, what kind of technology trends are driving, what kind of finishes which are being driven here. So all of these, while we'll have discussion during the panel, but let me take you through this presentation and some of the questions which are answered. So while this presentation is there, you can have any kind of queries. With these two gentlemen being here, they can answer all the queries which are there, because we are all dealing with what is being presented on a day-to-day basis. So first, I think maximum what we hear about is fabric trends in sustainability. Now, how much these fabric trends in sustainability are sustainable is a different question mark, because you saw what happened, like organic cotton. Sri Lanka talked about that, all my produce should be organic, and they went into issues. So these are sustainability are the trends which have to go gradual, because while we are talking sustainability, we have to parallelly work on a lot of research and development in terms of how the production will increase after using all sustainability techniques, how technology will change to use all the sustainable methods that we are adopting. So some of the sustainability trends are recyclable textiles, smart fabrics, organic raw material, green finishes. Recycled textiles represent significant trend in sustainable fashion. That's what, and some of what he is talking about here, that whether you use textile waste from industrial usage, unsellable textiles, textile waste from consumer, all put together, you can have, one is mechanical recycling and chemical recycling. While once you do mechanical recycling, it is shredded and fibers are formed, then you make again yarn out of it. But we all know, as some of the people who are technologists who are sitting here, that fiber does not have the same properties when mechanical recycling happens. So today when we talk about chemical recycling, and we are in touch with, I will just give the name Aquafil, which makes recycled, talk about chemical recycling, nylon 6, they use fishing nets, they use all fashion fabrics, all of them put together, they convert into caprolactam, which is chemical. And that chemical, you produce filament, nylon filament, no, now it's back. So nylon filament, which is produced out of it, has the same property as virgin nylon. So they have eco fiber, which they call it eco fiber, this, when we say Aquafil as a company. So the example is also given in this presentation later on. So you have those kind of, and this company Aquafil, they have developed the technology also in lines of that. That how do you really produce something which has same properties as virgin fiber. Same strength, same bulk, same properties as virgin fiber. I think this is where I would say sustainability will evolve in times to come, where you will have technological developments which will happen where buyer or a consumer will start getting same properties, and sustainability aspect is also taken care of. Then we are talking about smart fabrics with functional finishes to modify chemical and physical parameters of the fabric. That's also, you know, this we are doing, all fabric manufacturers, all who are using fabrics will understand this, whether self-cleaning capability. I think this is something which is needed in most of the fabrics that we make. And I was talking about, we have tomorrow a session for denim also. So if you, when we talk about these kind of fabrics, the poor needs it more. So if you have a self-cleaning fabric where you have the garment once, don't wash it for 10 days, and it's being reusable. Self-cleaning, you know, denim jeans are there. There are denim jeans I have seen in Turkey where you fold it, keep in fridge, self-clean in a box. So I think self-cleaning capability, self-repairing, structural color, ultra strength, UV protective, stain repellent, and antibacteria, I think these are the kind of fabrics where we are seeing functional finishes are taking shape. Then when we talk about fabric trends in sustainability, there are biodegradable fibers, there are biofibers, there are organic fibers. So the difference here is biodegradable fibers, we know that which can be broken down naturally by bacteria and like, you know, cotton and other seed flex plants and all. But when we talk about biofibers, they are renewable and sustainable biofibers who do not use up the renewable resources. So this is the biofibers, biodegradable fibers, organic fibers, definitely those who do not use fertilizers. So these are the three kinds of trends in sustainability. Again, big issues in terms of how and what needs to be developed to make them sustainable, but this is also a big trend. Fabric trends in sustainability like natural dyes, green finishing, chemical for fabric processing, all of this is happening. Metaverse fashion, I think this is in. A lot of brands are using it, and that's the future. Then I think this is also a very important aspect where we are talking emerging technology impacting fabric production in near future. So we have novel fabric innovations like eco leather, creating lab grown leather without harming animals, like eco silk, super strong spider silk, but do not hit the floors commercially. So while these fabrics are being developed, but they're still not fully commercialized, but it's on that stage where development is happening. So when we are talking about artificial intelligence in fashion, so again, when we are talking fast fashion, it's not really sustainable. So you produce so much so that people can use it, throw it, again you have to recycle. So here we are talking about a trend where instead of producing large quantities of these, fashion on demand, using artificial intelligence, where they are talking about that when you get an order, you produce those fabrics, you produce those garments. So it's on order. The whole idea is to reduce the wastage. That's what another aspect of artificial intelligence in fashion on demand. Then artificial intelligence to actually reduce overproduction in terms of the sizes which needs to be used. A complete connection with the stores, the online, offline stores where you don't keep things in stock. Things can be delivered in 2 days, 3 days from anywhere. Then fashion recycling, circular thinking, where we process material, recycle them, reuse again and again within the fashion industry. So these are some of the things which are when we are talking about technology being used in fashion, to whether it's to increase consumption but reduce wastage and creating different options for it. A woven and knit fashion, I think in this slide, what we are talking about, we have seen in pandemic, like people started using knits a lot. They went into comfortable clothing. But I think this trend which has started with COVID, it will remain in times to come, where you will find that a lot of knitwear fabrics or a lot of, even in woven, spandex being used 20%, 30%, 35%. So those kind of spandex being used, and you have those trends where comfort is the key. So today in US, almost 15% of suits, which are woven suits, they are like knitted spandex-based suit. And when somebody like Yatiraj, you are wearing this suit, people will not know it's a woven or a knit. And that's a comfort, crease resistance. So all of these properties are coming. So when we are saying knits, it's more of loungewear, sportswear, and t-shirts. When we are talking about woven, it's casual, formal, smartwear, shirts, complete trousers, suits, blazers. Synthetic woven is taking a major share in woven category, both in formal and casual. So I am saying there are knits, there are woven, and there are MMF categories where both are blended together, and you are having polyviscose blends, or viscose blends only, where it is working, where you are able to work on different options of fabrics, which give same properties and better drape, better comfort. Again, this is very important aspect. I think in our panel, we'll discuss with our panelists also, where we are talking about research and product development. I have seen, so fabrics are developed where major fabrics, Korea, Taiwan, Japan, Germany, Italy. So all of these places, you'll find there are big research institutes. So it's not that one company who is developing those fabrics. So there are, in a country like India, just to give you statistics, 3% in fabric industry, 3% is only organized. 97% of the fabric industry is like decentralized. So when you have 97% and they don't have the resources to develop these kind of fabrics from consumers. So somebody, as a research institute, suppose Vardhaman gets some fabric developed and they give full patent cost, it will be for them. But if it is not patented, then it can be given to all the whole of industry. Use in the show, what Rahul Bhai was talking about in garment show, you will find a lot of different kinds of fabrics. I think these domestic industry has huge need and demand for these kind of fabrics. They are looking for, because their consumer, they want to give something new every time. And that can only come to different kind of fabrics. And that can come through research and development being done by a lot of labs, centralized labs, where all these research and development happens, and it can be supplied at a reasonable cost to all, and then it can be developed and given to consumer at the right cost. I think beyond patenting is what we have to go here. Eco-friendly fibers, synthetic fabrics like recycled polyester, recycled nylon, recycled acrylic, synthetic fabrics with natural origins, lyocell, bamboo lyocell. So we have natural fabrics from plant fibers like organic cotton, rain-fed cotton, hemp, organic flax. So there are like organic wool, recycled animal fibers, peace and wild silk. So all kinds of fibers which are there. And I can tell you, it was like, Rahul Bhai, I think when we were on Japan India little long back, because when we were asking Japanese to come and invest, Japanese also said that we want to sell our fabrics to India. So there are almost 25 fabric players from Japan. They, in Sofitel Surya here, like in this Bandra Kurla complex, we organized a fabric show. And where these 25 Japanese players who came with their fabric, believe me, I had not seen these kind of blends in my life. The kind of blends which were there, no fabric was 100% polyester, 100% nylon or 100% cotton. It's all Kapro ammonium blend, hemp, the all kinds of PLA fibers. So all kinds of blends were there. And within one blend, there are 5 fibers, 6 fibers. So they all play on different blends. And then fabrics were costing from $8 per meter to $30 per meter. So I think this sustainability in terms of different kind of fibers can be seen from these countries. Development of protective textiles. Again, I think from buyer's perspective and sourcing fabrics, in this slide, from a sourcing perspective, from a brand perspective, what they are talking about is that as a buyer, you want to focus on consumer. You want to focus on creating brands so that consumer buys and more and consumption increases. But it lies on the fabric players to really supply them with all centralized setup, all product development. It can be given to the brands and brands can take it to the consumer is what we are talking about. Once you do a wrong selection of raw material, fabrics, it changes the whole ball game. The last few slides in terms of upcoming alternative materials and their scope. For example, DuPont Sorona with recycled poly and renewable plant-based ingredient with permanent stretch and recovery. So these kind of fabrics are there. Econyle, recycled nylon from Aquafil. That's what I was talking about earlier. So there are different kinds of options which are being developed. Nettle fibers, coffee ground fiber, pineapple fiber with Pinatex, fiber generated from pineapple leaves. So corn fibers, these are all fibers being developed, being used, eco-friendly, and acceptability with the consumer is huge. So these are the kind of trends that we are talking about. Efforts taken by fiber manufacturers to support product development clusters, biodegradable poly. Again, degradation is a big issue. So different kinds of biodegradable polyester is being developed. Bamboo fiber, hemp, linen. So all kinds of fibers, again, we are talking about. So in the end, this is the last slide where we are saying lot is happening in the fabric stage. You have seen different trends from sustainability to different fibers being used, different blends being used, the R&D, research and development being done. So some of the players who are leading this are Turkey, Taiwan, Korea. The key question is, are Indian companies adopting the same? Do we have answers? I think from our panel, we'd like to get these answers that what India needs to do as next steps to reach there. I think with this, let me start the panel. I think the whole holistic view has been given here. Thanks. Mukesh and Yatiraj, please. Thanks. I think how much time I have taken, enough time. That's what Rahul Bhai, I was saying that this presentation is good and it will take some time to explain. But I think as CMAI, all the people who are attending this will circulate this presentation so that you have in terms of what are the trends in future. So all of you who are attending at least have this presentation with you. So let me straight away start with, we have seen the presentations, Mukesh. You are exporting as well as you have domestic market, and I was checking with you that 35% of your sales is domestic and 65% is export. So you are the person who is actually monitoring both export and domestic market. From your perspective, do you think enough research and development is happening for consumers to get what consumer wants? Are enough technological innovations happening? And where you see what fabrics you are making vis-a-vis what is available in the countries that we talked about, is there a difference? Let me start with that. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Prashantji, for a very detailed presentation. And at the outset, I would like to congratulate the organizers of CMAI Fabric Show. It is fantastic. I reached here at about 12 o'clock and I took the round. There is a lot of enthusiasm amongst the presenters as well as the customers who are visiting them. And secondly, thank you very much for inviting me here. Coming to your question, Prashant, on the technology trends, you see, if you look at Indian textile space as a whole, so technology part we can divide into two parts. One is the spinning and weaving, which is largely the mass volume production orientation. So there, if we see in last couple of years, a lot of development has happened as far as the automation and reduction of the cost of manufacturing is concerned. Now you look at in the spinning industry, the labor deployment is in last 20 years, it has been brought down to I think 1/10. So the kind of labor deployment we used to have before, now the technology and automation is more and more affordable. Similarly, on the weaving side, I'm talking international. So India may still be stage as far as the machinery supplies is concerned, but internationally the technology is available. Second part is on the fabric dyeing and finishing. So at fabric dyeing and finishing is the real crux that you mentioned on the what do we have for the consumer, and at the back end on the fiber side. So on the fiber side, you would see a lot of development has happened on the man-made side, whether it is polyesters or nylons or the cellulosic blends. And then the technology, the manufacturing technology is supporting them, bringing them into a wearable product, whether it is blends or it is pure. And the fabric finishing is supporting to make them real consumer-centric. So I believe a lot of development has happened and the best is yet to come. Now, when it comes to India, as far as the international presence is concerned, I think the Indian domestic consumption market, that has to evolve in order to promote people have more investment into this. So you cannot just be putting an investment purely on the export, focusing on international
Is
market.
market domestic demand driven or consumer driven or manufacturer driven? Is this market what?
No, this is a difficult question. You know, the egg comes first or the chicken comes first. I think there has to be a even if the enterprise decides about investment, there has to be either the market is available or there is a potential in the market which is untapped. So that we can see if India is importing a lot of fabrics that India cannot manufacture by itself. So there itself the volume is not as much as to promote the Indian domestic investments.
Yeah, see, volume is there, but it all depends on whether it is in large quantities or not. But just to, because Vardhman being number one player, just wanted to understand your viewpoint in terms of what we presented today, in terms of overall growth in different kind of fabrics, the trends, what's the future, how you think Vardhman is aligned to both domestic and export, some views from your side on that.
No, at Vardhman, presently we are manufacturing almost like 600,000 meters per day, and a large part of it is specifically committed to Indian domestic consumption. So at the moment, our Indian domestic consumption is almost like 35 to 40%. So another 30% is supplied to India and it is exported in terms of garments. And rest of the about 20-25%, 30-35% is what we actually export the fabric to Bangladesh or Sri Lanka or Indonesia or Vietnam. Yes, Indian domestic consumption definitely is increasing. Now the Indian retail itself is getting more and more organized. So once the retail gets organized, so you have a evolved buyer in between the consumer and the mill. So even if the consumer doesn't want, someone will articulate the consumer's demand and they will create pressure on the mills to bring about that fabric. And as far as Vardhman is concerned, we have been continuously investing into increasing our capacities, not only the capacities, but also investment into creating more efficiencies and bringing new products to the market. So earlier, for example, in fabric space, as I mentioned that we are producing about 600,000 meters every day. 4 or 5 years ago, 60-70% of that used to be solids and bottoms. So now it is hardly 40%. We have reversed this equation because we want to be.
That's a big change.
Yeah, more fashionable. We are bringing about more blends now, whether it is cotton poly or cotton viscose or 100% cellulose, and then stretches and bi-stretches. four-way stretches. The products to bring about more comfort to the consumer, to the customer. And now we are not stopping here. There are certain more projects on the drawing board, which, you know, we being a public limited company, we will declare at the appropriate time. But we are seeing, and we are committed to Indian textiles, and we are seeing a lot many new products and a lot more new trends coming into. You mentioned on the sustainability, Vardhman, we have invested into our own recycling cotton plant, because now recycled cotton is one thing where only the supply will determine how big market can be. Every consumer, every customer is looking for a recycled product. So that is why we decided that if we have to.
How much virgin fiber you mix in recycled cotton?
Yeah, that depends upon the product requirement. If you have 20% of the recycled content, then it qualifies for GRS certification. So as for currently we are limiting ourselves to 25% of recycled content, and rest of the 80% is virgin, because the customer doesn't want to compromise on the aesthetics of the product.
So that's why a consumer is demanding sustainability but doesn't want to compromise on the properties. So I'm saying there is a difference which you can see just from what you answered. Very important question which comes to my mind is, you are saying you are supplying to domestic market, you are supplying to exporters, deemed exports you can say, and then you are directly supplying to Bangladesh, Vietnam and other countries, Cambodia and all, where they get converted into garments export. What is there a difference in the two in terms of, first, the quality that you supply, the price points, the variety, or the type of fabric? So is there a difference in these three?
No,
Just curious to know.
Absolutely not. Our plants are the same, and all the plants, all the quality processes are designed in a way to give the best of the product. So the product at the end of that is going out of Vardhman. So
my question is that when these three kind of fabrics are there, so is the demand is of different kind of, like, is Bangladesh asking for more of a blends, or Indians asking for less of blends or different finishes?
No,
is there a difference in need?
I tell you, it's not like that. Actually, the end consumer sits elsewhere.
Right.
It is neither in India nor for the indirect exports, I am telling,
Right.
nor in Indian.
Yeah,
Bangladesh.
agreed. Yes.
So either it is the US market or European market or maybe
Japanese.
Japan. So the end buyer decides the quality parameters. That is one. Second is your own quality standards as per which you will clear the product. For example, in the fabric there are certain quality parameters. One of those is, let us say, center to selvage shade variation. So if a particular customer doesn't accept a particular level of shade variation, we do not supply that kind of variation to anywhere in the market, because in our plant we cannot have two standards.
Right.
So the quality team is trained in a particular way. Of course, some buyer may have some particular norm. For example, in Japanese market, you have that chlorine fastness is one norm, which in other markets is not there. So that particular test we will do only for the Japanese market. But otherwise, as far as quality goes, it is all the same.
Okay, I think I understood, and I have some more questions. I'll come back to you. But Yatiraj, to you, in terms of when Vardhman is more cotton dominated, you are more MMF synthetics dominated. First of all, is future of cotton or synthetics?
That is a question I would not like to answer.
Why?
No, definitely. More importantly, thank you everyone. Thank you Prashantji. Thank you the CMAI team for having me over. It is an honor to be here. I sincerely believe polyester is going to play a very, very important role going forward. Biggest reason being, as we have been discussing, all of us are eventually working to add value to the consumer. Why you and I are working today, it is to add value to the consumer. We do it through textiles. Now polyester, the development that has gone into polyesters in the last 10 years, it is phenomenal. Plus the amount of attributes that you can add to polyester, you have a lot more flexibility when it comes to polyester. Cotton is a natural fiber. It is grown naturally. It has its own properties. Whereas with polyester, you can control every single parameter that you want. You can mold it as per your requirement. So polyester is going to play a very, very strong role going forward. Cotton will of course have its own place, but the acceptance of polyester What we are seeing for a very long while is increasing phenomenally every year. Not a gradual increase, but a very fast acceptance. And I think polyester is going to do well.
So, but as you know, and today I think our Minister Ma'am was also talking about that earlier the image of polyester was always like, you know, poor man's fabric, right? So, has Surat evolved, first of all, in terms of the kind, or in what percentage, in kind of fabrics which is kind of poor man's fabric, vis-a-vis fabric which everybody needs, but you offer a lot of variety and blends. Has Surat moved from that to today?
So, very interesting point. Just to give you a few statistics, Surat is now producing over 4 crore meters of fabric a day.
Okay.
Probably, I am not sure, but probably one of the biggest centers of production around the world. And yes, Surat has a traditional image of being a synthetic dominated market. It still is. But when you come to Surat, now you have people, and Surat also has an image of a very ethnic women's wear production market. Last 10 years, Surat now has manufacturing of every conceivable type of fabric that you see. We make menswear, we make women's wear, we make home furnishing, we make performance wear, we make stretchable wovens. So Surat has it is going to take a while to change that image, but Surat is doing has expanded its product portfolio significantly in terms of the application and in terms of the blends. So we are doing a lot of cottons, natural fibers, along with synthetics. Definitely in Surat for that.
So, do you miss a product development center that we were talking about, or individually companies are able to manage different product varieties and develop new products as per the consumer needs?
We do miss. I've been fortunate enough to travel to a lot of countries, as you have mentioned, Turkey, Europe, a lot for business, and the kind of development that we see there today, India still has to catch up, and that is a fact that we still have to catch up, be it in terms of the basic raw material that we put in. We are very strong in the yarn manufacturing, be it spinning or be it filament. We are very strong in fabric manufacturing, knitting, weaving. Processing is something that we are still, we have to catch up to the levels of Taiwan, Korea, the Europeans for that matter. And this is where now the bodies, the research and development bodies, now we are seeing in Surat, Mantra is becoming more active in trying to collaborate with corporates and to develop new technologies, new processes. Mantra has quite a few patents, and it's a good thing for the industry. We are seeing that. But yes, not yet to the level of what Europeans are. But I think also we are on the transition stage, since polyester has just started getting the acceptance. Now we are on that stage wherein now people like us are more inclined to invest in newer technologies. We are talking with a lot of people from around the world, trying to bring in real innovation in terms of the basic raw material. A couple of technologies from US bringing in their innovation in India, trying to produce that, and that is how we start. And that is when, once we start seeing some results, is when I think we will start investing in developing more technologies.
But Yatiraj, I can tell you that Indian consumer is really adaptable. So it's you. So suppose today it's not that 2G, 3G, 4G, and 5G. So India is rolling out 5G. Right. It's not that it will wait till what others have done. So I think consumer is ready to take that change. If manufacturers are able to develop those fabrics and bring to market much faster, then consumer will accept it much faster. What do you think?
Quite likely. Again, it is that same story, chicken egg story. You get the order, you make it, you make the product, you sell it. But yes, I think the point is to more educate the consumer now. With all of these technologies, we have to push the information out, we have to show them the benefits. And if we are able to do that successfully, if the brands are able to do that successfully in India, Indian consumer is up for taking the products. I 100% agree with you for that.
I would only say that there is no chicken and egg story anywhere. It's only consumer is ready, and if we don't make it, then we always can excuse. But I don't think, because anything that you bring to consumer which is new, for example, you see Uniqlo. Now their stores are like sales per square feet is really, really high. So they're selling all at high cost the kind of products that even undergarments, people are just changing in terms of from cotton to all kinds of blends.
Yes.
And they are feeling so comfortable. So consumer is ready to pay. Consumer is ready to kind of experiment. So you have to bring product to the market.
I'll give you a very easy example, which I personally have gone through. 5 years ago, if you run, you exercise, and typical Indian would wear a cotton t-shirt.
Right.
And the moment you have worn a dry fit, you cannot go back to cotton. If you wear a dry fit, you go exercising, then you cannot switch back to cotton.
Right.
Because the performance that you're going to get out of that dry fit, the lightweightedness of the garment, after the moisture management, those are certain properties that are difficult. So yes, because of the lack of availability a while back, we were not exposed. We didn't have the exposure then. But if we bring it, yes, people are ready to accept. I agree.
Just to give an example, seamless garments. Today, you have swimwear from seamless garments. It enhances your performance in all kinds of sports. So it's not that one is the kind of blends that Yatiraj was talking about, but otherwise, even in terms of fits, you have those kind of garments which increases your performance as a whole. Right. I think again, a lot of things happening in synthetic, what Yatiraj talked about. But my question to you, Mukesh, I can also pass on mic, that's not an issue. So my question to you is that while we are talking about cotton and MMF, and there are a whole lot of fibers that we show in the presentation also, that hemp, corn fibers, linen is again everybody knows, but there are bamboo fibers. So all kinds of fibers which are available, which are not so popular in India. So as Vardhman, do you see the demand for these growing? Do you see more and more blends of these fibers coming up? Are you trying for it?
Yeah, Prashant, actually what is happening is in textiles, because our chain is pretty long, the order starts from say US market, and it will land somewhere in the Hong Kong where there is a hub office, and from Hong Kong it will say come to either Bangladesh or India, and then it will come to the mills. From mill it goes backwards to the spinner, and from spinner to the fiber manufacturer. So the chain is pretty long. Some development of this sort that has to happen in a very collaborative manner, which we will keep missing till the time we have a Indian domestic consumption to be ready for such like products. Number one. Number two, my own take is Prashantji ki any fiber which is coming from some kind of food, whether it is corn or milk protein or the pineapple fiber that you saw, so they may have their own limitation in terms of availability. And third aspect to it is the scalability, that even if the fiber is available, but whether it can attain a particular scale, till the time it can attain a particular scale and at a particular speed and efficiency, the large buyers may not touch them, and the smaller ones may not have capacity to invest into that kind of R&D. So that is why a lot new fibers are introduced, but they are not commercialized to a scale where it can be available to the mass market. So that is why the large fibers, we talk about cottons, polyesters, nylons, and now the cellulosics, and to some extent the popularity for linen and hemp is growing. But again, the cultivation and availability of the fiber will always remain an issue. So we have to see in terms of the scalability what are going to be the major fibers, and of course some wool will remain, some silk will always remain as a novelty, but we cannot think them to replace fiber like polyesters or cottons or nylons. That is my take on that.
So again, this question goes to both of you, whether we talk about cotton, various blends, and then synthetics. while we all know and we have discussed that fabric is the key to fashion, when we talk about fashion, the options in fabric is the key to fashion. And when we talk about fabrics, the blend is not a random blend. It's the functional properties of fibers which really play an important role when we are blending different fabrics. Do you think it's time for India to collaborate with companies in the countries like Korea, Taiwan, Germany, Japan? One is companies, second is institutions. So is it time to do that first? And second is, are we doing any efforts in that direction if it is the time?
Yeah, that is an important question, Prashantji. Actually, if we talk about the collaboration as much as the mills could do, there is quite a big level of collaboration amongst, with India, whether it is Europe or Japan. For last about, we are into the textile space since 1965, and I think we will have collaborations with Japanese and Europeans since 1970, maybe 4 or 5 years when the company came into being. So whether it is acrylic fiber, or it is polyester fibers, or it is nylon fiber, or it is spinning technology, weaving technology, or processing technology. So you will see a large gamut of collaborations that we have. Similarly, on the front end, on the customer side, so we have customers as old as the business itself is. The second aspect to it is the association with the research institutions, wherein the government or the public institutions have to play a role. There, I believe there is a lot of scope. We have to cover a lot of ground there. Yati,
Yeah, please. As you had mentioned that when you traveled to Japan, you had seen fabrics with 4, 5, 6 blends. I've also been fortunate enough to see these kind of fabrics. Textile is a beautiful science. Every single of those blend plays a particular role. It's not that they just found these fibers, mixed all of that, made a khichdi, and made this. So we have to understand. The next evolution is for us to understand in depth the different properties of this fiber and how to best bring all of these together, whatever is practically applicable, and make the best quality fabric. And the good part is, as you had mentioned about collaborations, about international countries and companies collaborations, we are at a very good time, because while we are interested in collaborating with them where India is today, they are also equally interested in collaborating with Indian companies. 2 reasons. India in itself is a very big market, and India is also positioning itself as a global player in textiles. So yes, a lot of companies in our circle are already doing it, more with other companies, not with the institutes yet. But it is the most appropriate time to try and focus more on these collaborations where we can find synergies. There are a lot of technologies that the West or the Far East are masters of. How we can bring best of those in India, and vice versa. Regarding the institutions, we have to work harder, as Mukesh rightly said. Neither do we have those kind of institutions here today, nor are we collaborating that much, but we should push harder. The Institute of Taiwan, the Technical Textile, TTTW, it's a fantastic institute. I've met a couple of people who are doing collaborations with them for MMF from Taiwan, and the results are phenomenal. We have seen Reliance do a lot of tie-ups with the Europeans, and we see good results there. And I think going forward, specifically speaking from MMF point of view, the industry is doing reasonably aggressively in trying to do these collaborations, bringing in the technologies. We at Madhusudan are very aggressive in this. Our core idea is to bring technologies available around the world to an Indian consumer, give them the level of exposure and products that people have access to in the West.
in the show with the kind of fabrics, and because you two are both important players. So did you find variety, or what different you found in the show? Maybe you might have seen the little part of it, it's not the whole of it. What did you find different?
Yeah, a couple of things. Actually, on the we have a couple of our customers also displaying they have their stalls here. So on the trouser side, I saw instead of 100% cotton or cotton spandex, there is a lot of play with polyesters and multi-fibers. So the aesthetic is different, the feel of the garment is different, and of course, I am sure the consumer, and it is with a view to not only mitigate the cost, but also to create more comfort for the consumer, number one, and to bring something, to offer something new. This is one. Second, I saw a lot of digital prints. So digital prints, normally we say it is high cost or it is require different kind of technology, but a lot of ground has been covered. So there are very nice digital prints that I saw. So two things I have noticed.
And you, Yasina?
I walked around the whole show, and the concepts of sustainability, what we are talking about and what the world is moving towards, it is a very nice initiative to see that every company now is focusing on how they can make more sustainable fabrics. It will give us access to, of course, the domestic clientele, but also the international clientele. So that was a very pleasant thing to see. I remember because when we started recycled polyester in India, we were the second company to do that. And at that time, people didn't understand what the whole concept meant. It was more for us trying to explain to them, oh, this is the process, this is the benefit. And people were asking, why to even go for it? I'm talking 6-7 years back. So now it has become a core theme, and now everyone is pursuing it, and it gives us more access to international clientele. So that was the most, the best part about the show that I appreciated.
So that means we are seeing a lot of variety in the show. So Rahul bhai, it's going to be a big success because people are seeing a lot of differences. So that's an important part. I have one last question with my panelist, but from the audience also, if you have some question you can raise and we can answer. And so Rahul bhai, can you take this mic, please? Keep it in audience. We'll answer from here.
I've heard some interesting comments on sustainability from both the panelists. I just wanted to know, you all are making these innovations in sustainable fabrics developments and so on. Is there really a sense or a need for sustainability at the consumer level, the end consumer level? That's number one. And number two, are the garment manufacturers who would be your customers, I presume, are they willing to pay that extra money for the sustainable, on the concept of sustainability? Not because the fabric is looking good or feeling good or, a better quality than the other one, but on the basis of sustainability in itself. Are the manufacturers willing to pay a little more, and are the consumers aware of what that is, and are they looking for it?
Yeah, that is an interesting question, Rahulji. Actually, as far as the consumer is concerned, may not be in India, but as I learned, in the US and in Europe, particularly in the Europe, there is a lot of consumer centricity and consumer sensitivity on the sustainability. So if that was not, then probably the brands would not have been pushing for it, because we saw from organic to BCI, now to recycling, and not only on the fiber side, but also on the textile processing side. There is a lot of focus on the sustainable practices. For example, you talk about Higg Index. Every other big retailer is now making it almost mandatory for the mills to go through that takes care of your social side of the business as well as the water and energy side of the business. So that is one aspect to it. Second is when it comes to the cost. So that is something very, very tricky. Of course, everybody wants to be wants a sustainable product, but nobody wants to pay higher price for that. So that is why we saw, no, somebody is smiling. So that is why we saw what happened to organic last year. So people wanted organic cotton, but at the same time they don't wanted to pay the price for that, even though everybody knew that once you convert from conventional cotton to organic cotton, the yield is going to be lower. The fiber properties are not going to be as much as they are for the conventional cotton. So you are, and nobody wanted to compromise on the finished product. My shirt should look the same, perfect shirt. So at the end of the day, there would be compromises, and we all know what happened last year. But probably I have a strong view that people will evolve and rise to the occasion. For example, now you talk about virgin polyester versus recycled polyester. So the recycled polyester fiber price is higher. And now the brands are also seized of the issue that yes, they have to pay a little bit higher price for the sustainable material if they are asking for that. So there is no clear-cut answer. Some brands are there who are recognizing and who are really wanting recycled material, and they are paying for it, but not exorbitant. They also are concerned that the consumer's pocket should not be pinched as much that they walk away from the sustainability, because the sustainability of the human comes first, which is the profitability, I would say.
Is it same in export and domestic?
Yeah, it is same. Indian consumer has yet to evolve, wherein they start recognizing sustainable product distinguished from the rest of it. So Indian brands, they have not yet caught the fancy of sustainability as much it is in the Europe and US.
So just
and Japan.
Just to give you an example, and I'll not name the designer, a big designer of India, and like we were talking to him and he said, Prashant, we only came to know recently while we were designing a lot of hand embroidery in all our garments. As an Indian consumer, he's not ready to pay anything extra for hand embroidery. He's ready to pay for the price of my name, like it is designed by this designer. And then after that, it is machine embroidery, hand embroidery, doesn't actually matter. So while internationally for hand embroidery, people pay humongous premium. So saying there is a stark difference between consumers of different countries from that perspective. And you have a view on this?
Yes, very similar along the lines to both of you. I'll give you a report that I was going through today morning. A study by McKinsey recently concluded that 80% of textiles, they did a study of textiles and orders in Bangladesh, and they said that by 2030, 80% of the textiles is going to be circular. I don't know how realistically we can reach that target so soon, but the sentiment is there. My point is the sentiment is there. People are asking for it, and Bangladesh supplies for the entire world. So definitely the Europeans and the Americans, they're asking for it. But coming back to India, the generation that now is coming up, we are an educated generation. People are now seeing surprisingly high number of people follow Greta Thunberg in India. When people hear a 10-year, 12-year-old child, people, they have a subconscious that they develop. So yes, today we are unable to fulfill our orders for recycled polyesters. Of majority are yet going for export, but now Indian consumers and Indian companies have started asking for it. Not a very long time before Indian consumers also accepted, and I don't think maybe in couple years, 2-3 years down the line, sustainability will not even be a novelty anymore. Today it is a novelty, it will become a norm. My prediction says 2 to 3 years. There's no talk without a sustainable fiber.
So, Rahul bhai, I think a lot of changes happening fast. I think what will bring the maximum change is that in this conference, suppose we are talking, so sustainability is being talked about at length. So everywhere you talk about, brands are talking, they know sustainable fabrics, sustainable fibers are not available. But still everybody is talking about, even if there is a lot of mixing which is happening at the backstage and people are labeling it differently, but it's still being talked about, still a lot of things are happening. So it's something like, if you start talking about, for example, WGSN is a website which talks about color 2-3 years in advance. So because that website is followed by a lot of exporters, brands to design their range. So what they talk about 2 years back, it becomes a trend today. So today, when everyone is talking about whether it is happening or not, I think everybody will start working towards it. And it's anybody's guess whether it's 10 years, 5 years, 7 years, 12 years, but it's going to come. So I think the fact that it's being talked about, it's a big change. The fact that when brands even are not present, it's being talked about is a big change. So with this, I think I have already, while overshot my time on today's panel, and thanks to both of you really to give your good inputs. And what I could see from what the presentation and what the views we discussed today, there are a lot of consumer and technology trends. That's what we talked about. So definitely there are a lot of technology trends happening globally. When leaders do it, the followers follow it, and the changes happen across the value chain. So there are a lot of change in technology. There are a lot of change in terms of consumer asking for it. So it's becoming a buzzword. As Rahul bhai asked, when the consumer is ready to pay for it, I think when it happens, when more and more people become conscious, consumer will start paying for it also. Or the quantum becomes so big that the rationalization of cost in the supply chain will also happen. So it's either consumers start paying for it or rationalization of the cost will start happening. But change is happening. There are trends which are globally there, the trends which are coming in India. And as you could see in the Fab Show today, the kind of options, the kind of fabrics which the domestic market is demanding, the domestic consumer is demanding, I think the change is happening. It's happening here in front of our eyes. I think we have to be part of it. Thanks to both the panelists for this show. Thanks a lot.
It had been a very scintillating 1 hour of discussion, I think. All of us will agree with this. No, it's working. You're able to hear me, right? Yeah. So I think they deserve a very good applause that you have already given. Once more we can give it. Now, may I request the Mr. Nikhil Furia from CMEI to give a memento to Mr. Bansal. Bansal. May I request Ashok Bhai Thakkar to come and give a memento to Yatiraj Mundra. And last but not the least, may I request Prakash Parekh of CMAI to give a vote of thanks and a memento for a dual role played by Mr. Prashant. Prashant sir, you have been a very good moderator and a presenter. Thank you very much. thank you to all of you for very listening this very much and being there. And I hope you have registered for the we have following seminars tomorrow and day after tomorrow. Thank you.